And despite concerns, I think from many folks, and again, we'll see how this plays out over the next 12 months going into the midterms. But democracy worked well on Tuesday. So let's talk about this year's off-year elections. Tuesday, a huge night for Democrats as they sweep just about every race imaginable, running up the score in a lot of places. In Virginia, Abigail Spanberger was elected governor in a rout. This comes alongside wins for the rest of the Democratic ticket. State Senator Ghazala Hashmi won the lieutenant governor's race. The former Jay Jones, former delegate, won the attorney general's office, like by 5 points, despite a scandal roiling him, where he joked about political violence in some text threads. So even he won his race pretty convincingly in Virginia. Now up in New Jersey, in the contest that drew national attention as a gauge of the Trump administration. Mikey Sherrill won the governor's race there in what was expected to be a much closer race than it was. She wound up winning by like 15 points over State Assemblyman Jack Ciattarelli. Across the Hudson in New York City, phenom Zoran Mamdani, the Democratic Socialist, was elected mayor of New York City, capping a stunning ascent for the 34-year-old who ran on a platform of affordability, defeating longtime Democrat, former governor, and son of another former governor, Andrew Cuomo, as well as the Republican Curtis Sliwa. And he won on the first ballot. They have ranked choice voting over there. He finished above 50% on the first ballot. And with his win, the Democratic Socialist will become the first Muslim mayor in the city's history, the first of South Asian heritage, and the first person born in Africa. He will also become the city's youngest mayor in more than a century when he takes office on New Year's Day. And finally, not finally, there's others, but the other big race on Tuesday was out in California, where Governor Gavin Newsom's measure, Prop 50, was approved by 30 points, overwhelmingly. This was an effort to override the state's independent redistricting commission in order to redraw their congressional maps in response to all of the gerrymandering states like Texas and Missouri and maybe Indiana have been doing here over the last several months. That pushed, like I said, that won by a lot. There were some other races. Democrats maintained control of the state Supreme Court in Pennsylvania. There were some mayor races in big cities. I want to say J.D. Vance's half-brother or something was running for mayor of Cincinnati, and he got blown out, like embarrassed badly. So I guess I want to ask all of you, first of all, what are your takeaways from Tuesday's elections? Which race stands out to you? And furthermore, what can Hoosiers learn from Tuesday's elections as we prepare for next year's midterms? Let me start with you, Ross.
Turnout. That's what I take is the key to Democratic victories is turnout. You look at New Jersey, which was polling at some points within 3 points, with a unapologetic Trump candidate on the ballot, leaning into Trumpism. And the reason that, and he lost by double digits. It was not a 3-point race. And the reason is not because a bunch of people changed their mind on the last day, but because the polling models had a certain turnout figure, and the Democrats blew that out of the water. And one of the reasons was uh, turnout in northern New Jersey, which is the blue part of the state, was very, very, very high. And the other thing in New Jersey in particular was the Hispanic vote um, was much higher, and it went overwhelmingly for the Democrat. And actually, there were counties where Trump had won the Hispanic vote just 2 years ago in a couple of New Jersey counties. He had won the Hispanic vote by a couple of points, and that was reversed completely, again, by higher overall turnout and by losing that Hispanic vote. So I think enthusiasm in Indiana, as we look at it, that's always the key for victory in Indiana, especially in areas where we don't have the majority, and that is we have to have overwhelming Democratic turnout, and independents have to lean our way overwhelmingly, and then we also have to have Republicans being depressed. The one thing that we see again and again and again is when Trump is not on the ballot, a lot of Trump first voters don't vote. Um, we saw we saw that in 2018. It's sort of the opposite of that when Trump came to Indiana to stump for Braun in that Senate race. He came here multiple times, and we saw turnout go really high in Indiana. We weren't part of the wave, and part of the reason was because Trump spent so much time here campaigning for Braun. He's not going to come here to campaign for Jefferson Shreve, and he's not going to come here for Aaron Houchin or any of those folks or Victoria Spartz. Trump's not coming. So we have to look at that and say, will those Trump first voters care? Probably not. That's going to depress that Republican vote. So somebody like me who's looking at these numbers said, hey, look, let's use that Obama model. Let's get massive turnout among Democrats. Let's allow Republicans to be depressed, and we can win some of these things. So it's exciting, and it does apply. Look, Virginia is not, if we had the turnout, we have the lowest turnout in the United States. We have to remind people again and again and again, we have the lowest turnout in the United States. If we had the turnout that they have in Virginia, we would be Virginia demographically. So yeah, it's exciting.
What? I just can't get the picture of like Trump and Shreve campaigning next to each other. I would think Trump would want to appear next to Shreve because it would make whatever the hell that thing on his head is look better in comparison. Now, Leslie, what's your big takeaway from Tuesday's election? Which one of those races stood out to you?
Well, I really liked Mom Donnie because I think he ran an amazing campaign, just happy, confident, and he had fun. And that's what people needed. When I campaigned, I talked about like the loneliness epidemic, and he gave young people something to do. They did a treasure hunt. I didn't have quite the same thing. I would have like a coloring page of an Indiana native species give to kids. But I think giving people something, making it a little bit more fun is important. I think something that hurts us for sure is straight party ticket voting. And I have a friend who lives in Illinois who said that if we didn't have that, she thinks I just might have won because we talked about the laziness factor of people just going and checking maybe Republican. They wanted Trump. They could, maybe they met me, but they just couldn't be bothered to spend 3 extra minutes in the booth and vote for me. And that is something that I think that all the candidates can and should address on their literature and on their door knocking. I think that if I run again, I will definitely do that. Um, and I think that we do need to, explain to these non-voters, if you turn out, I could win. If you turn out, I could win. We really do need you, because I did find reluctant voters, and I wasn't really sure that they would go to the polls, but they seem like good, kind people. And I did find younger people who'd say, or anybody who'd say, "Oh, I'm not involved in politics." And I would say, you may not care about politics, but every single aspect of your life has something to do with politics, from how fast you can drive, what kind of car you can drive, where you can live, who you can marry, how much wage you get paid, what the minimum wage is. And I think people need to understand that connection. But yeah, I think that focus on community, and that we can do it. We can be like Virginia. We can do this too. Because I think, yeah, Indiana has had a lot of demoralization after Obama was elected. The GOP wanted to make certain that that didn't happen again. And they heavily worked to gerrymander and to do voter suppression. And we're going to have to do some, reversing of that. But there's the truth of the matter is, like Ross said, a lot of people don't vote, and maybe they will come back out. We can hit them with images of the White House being destroyed. And I mean, I think that that's just a good visual, because that was so shocking. I think other people want to absorb a lot of things. Oh, okay, so this isn't so great, but I can live with it. I can live with it. And yeah, I think that this wave is going to hit the whole country. We're all fed up. We're fed up.
You made a good point about folks not being into politics. I always like to say you might have been into politics. Politics is into you.
Yeah.
Ross, are people into Gavin Newsom? We haven't talked about this one. So over in California, listen, this Prop 50 thing, it's kind of wonky. It's about gerrymandering. It's a process vote. I mean, and really, like even a lot of Democrats and find it distasteful. I mean, he's asking the voters, "Hey, let us cheat the same way Texas cheats," and they did. The folks came out for 30 points for Prop 50. Is this a testament to the popularity of Gavin Newsom, and does it put him in a position to be the, say, Democratic front runner if you look out to 2028?
I think it was not that hard of a sell to people to say, look, you see that there's cheating, blatant cheating going on. What are we going to do about it? Are we going to wring our hands and say, I can't believe those guys are cheating again, but we're above doing anything untoward? Or are we going to say, look, until we're not going to disarm unilaterally. And if you're going to do that, we can do it too. And we didn't start it; you started it. And I think it's not that hard for people to understand. I mean, if you look, unfortunately, Democratic states have again and again and again. The reason California is in that position is because Democratic states have disarmed and said, well, you guys may gerrymander, but gerrymandering is so bad that we're not going to do it. We're going to ourselves have a commission, and we're going to have fair maps. Well, guess what? You're going to lose nationally because you're playing fair. Meanwhile, the other guys don't give a damn about being fair, and you're just standing by. So, well, look, we're above all that. The hell we are. We're not above all that. We've got to play the game under the rules that we have, not the rules we want. So I don't think it was that hard to explain to voters that what they were doing and that they were fighting fire with fire. Look, I think Gavin Newsom, we'll see. I think Gavin Newsom brings a lot to the table. I think, for me personally, I'd like to see a little more sincerity, perhaps, on some issues, and I think there's some opportunism there that kind of gives me Clinton flashbacks. That's really not. Again, I'm a Wellstone guy, right? I want somebody who's going to stand up and say exactly what he thinks, whether it's popular or not. And for me, and again, it's early and nobody cares what I think anyway, but I think J.P. Pritzker is somebody that I've heard speak, that I've met, that he is staunch in many of the things that he believes in, and obviously is a guy that can't be bought. So I like him. There's a lot of people I like. I like, and I wouldn't turn away Gavin Newsom, but I don't know that this referendum is really about his popularity so much as it is about people rejecting, blatant cheating in Texas.
Yeah.
People are sick of Texas. I think people are sick of the corruption in Texas and the way those people behave. I think they're sick of it. And Californians also saw Trump's response to the wildfires and the blatant disregard for the people and his, idiot spousings about the water and trying to blame everything and withholding help. And I mean, I think that they were just fed up. You're right. And they have a lot of power, right? They're one of the largest economies. And yeah, they should have a say, and they are.
Let me tell, yeah. About these on the redistricting thing, and there's a tie-in. I want to bring this back to Virginia, which is sort of where we started, because under the radar, Spanberger won by a lot, and we could talk about whether that is the direction of the Democratic Party in the future, or maybe the Mamdani direction. That's kind of the big conversation happening this week in Democratic circles. But under the radar in Virginia, I think the biggest thing that happened was their Democrats routed Republicans in their state assembly, the House of Delegates, they call it there in Virginia, picking up like 13 seats. I think Democrats are on pace to like win 64 out of the 100 seats in the Virginia House of Delegates, and that's massive. And this is they've been talking about redistricting in Virginia as well. This past session of the assembly there passed whatever legislation they needed to. They have to do it 2 sessions in a row in order to redraw their maps. So again, with that on the table, Republicans knew this was coming. People who were against the redistrict there knew this was coming. Democrats landslide in the assembly there. And I think it's really important, and I hope to connect with some of these. Our good friend Michelle Higgs of the Indiana Rural Summit has some connections with folks out there in Virginia, and what they did in running their races, they sort of bundled swing races with maybe other lesser races in that geographical neighborhood, and the momentum of pairing these races, sort of having these folks work together as a team, really helped push turnout up. And a lot of those folks that maybe they weren't in the races that you thought were going to flip, they got pulled up too. And you have this, and I think this is something that maybe Indiana Democrats could learn from in this cycle. And Michelle's maybe working on putting together some of our folks with their folks and see if we can't coordinate something. I hope to get a chance to talk to them too. But is there anything else like kind of down ballot that jumped out at you, Leslie?
I do think Virginia was very inspiring, and the people have the power. Patti Smith said that. She has a great song about it, and I think the Republicans have always known that their policies are unpopular, but they have been able to finagle their way into majorities where they really shouldn't. And we know that they could be more popular if they would moderate and modify their policies, which they don't want to do. So it's only going to take getting turned out of power. So yeah, I just thought, yay, Virginia, how inspiring for the rest of us. And Mississippi too. Mississippi.
Yes. Yeah, I forgot
Love
all about that one. Mississippi Democrats, I want to say, flipped 3 seats or something. It doesn't sound like a lot, but they broke the Republican supermajority in that state house. And boy, if Hoosier Democrats could do the same thing next year, we need 4 seats at the very least. If we can break that supermajority, we can keep them from doing the worst of the worst. Ross, what's the Hoosier angle from Tuesday's election? How are you tying Tuesday's results back to lessons that Indiana Democrats can maybe take forward as we organize for next year?
Well, I think Mamdani's campaign, not really. I mean, the message was great, right? The message was about affordability, was about working people, was about problems that people face every day. So the message was great. But for somebody like me as a county chair, the process was great, right? They were out in the community, thousands and thousands of people volunteering, going and knocking on those doors, knocking on over 1 million doors in a city of 7 million is a huge, huge undertaking. And it's very, very effective. So, remember, it's not, you can say, well, look, he's the Democrat and he won. What does that really show? And that's sort of been the Republican take, right? Oh, well, it's not really news that a Democrat won in New York. Well, look, he came from 1% at when he first decided to run as a state assemblyman with a funny name and a Muslim background. He started at 1%. But with that message, but also sending that message to the people, getting out and knocking on those doors, sending out those text messages, getting people in the community involved. Oh, I've gone sideways. How nice. Oh, there I am. That's what I would have Democrats in Indiana do: the hard work, get out and make a commitment to do the hard work and not just sit back and say, I'm glad you guys are doing that. Good for you. It ought to be, what can I do? Let's get out and talk to people. Let's get out and have a message. And it works. And again, I'm not so much about convincing a hardcore MAGA guy to abandon MAGA. I think that's a heavy lift and probably not going to happen. But for every one of those guys, there's 2 or 3 people that probably haven't even voted that you can get out and say, listen, you need to get on board. That's an easier sell. That's what I'm about, So yeah, I think showing in all of those races that it's enthusiasm and turnout, and getting out there that works.
Leslie, a lot of folks, I think, on our side of the aisle, we're trying to figure out what this thing means. We saw the big win for a Democratic socialist like Mamdani in New York. Well, meanwhile, in Virginia, we saw a big win for more of a centrist Democrat, a former CIA agent in Abigail Spanberger. Listen, she won by more. Does that mean that is what we should do? We should nominate more Abigail Spanbergers and more Alyssa Slotkins and more cops to be our Democrats?
No, I think, kind of what Ross was saying. I think we need to nominate people who have convictions and who are passionate. We are not a monolith, and a coalition of people who have good ideas is really what we need. We see too many of the Republicans, they just all vote, in a block, and doesn't matter what their individual convictions are. But we need some real solutions and people who are smart and creative and innovative. And that means all different kinds of people. I do think that, being sincere, actually caring about people and liking people does make a difference. But I think that the economy crashing, prices going up, all these things are real effects that people are seeing. Because the man I ran against, he's not very inspiring at all, and he just really benefited from being an incumbent and being a Republican. But, so in that case, we have some work to do, but I do think that maybe people are seeing that, well, right, we're saying maybe Republicans, many of them are not going to change, but it's getting the reluctant voters, the people who didn't think it would ever get this bad. Oh, they don't need my vote. Yeah, and we need to make the case. We do need your vote. We do care. We do want to make things better. But in order to make things better, you gotta put some skin in the game too. If I'm spending thousands of hours volunteering and knocking on doors, you need to spend a few hours on a Tuesday or early voting and helping out. That's what we ask of you. And I think, that's what we're realizing. Democracy it's a participation activity, you know and I think that we just need to run sincere people who care.
About that, I want to bring this back home to Indiana. So, when it was Wednesday, maybe, former Governor Evan Bayh, also a former senator, as well as another former Indiana Senator Joe Donnelly, were on Snyder Report with Gary Snyder, talking about the lessons that they were taking away from Tuesday's elections, and they were very quick to say, hey now, Indiana, don't come away with the wrong lessons. We don't want that kind of Mamdani stuff here in the Hoosier state. Now, I would say if we learned anything out of the wow, I'm bad as Cuomo trying to pronounce Mamdani's name. If we learned anything out of the Mamdani phenomenon this year, it's that Democrats reject legacy names with shady Republican funding sources.
Yeah.
I don't know. Am I reading too much into this?
Yes.
Yeah. Ross, do your job as the Democratic Party chair and smack me down.
Well, so look, Andrew Cuomo was a flawed guy. In many, many, many ways. So his problem wasn't that he was a legacy. His problem was that he was a scumbag. The legacy part didn't enter into it. I mean, if anything, the legacy would help him because his father was a great Democrat and a great governor. So yeah, I wouldn't. I know where you're at and I know where you're going, but I'm sorry. That part of it. The legacy part, I think, look, there are plenty of legacies that are fine. At the end of the day, it comes down to who you are and what you do, not what your name is. That may get your foot in the door, but listen, Eric Trump is a legacy, but I don't know that anybody's eager to vote for him for dog catcher. So no, I don't think I would read too much into that. I also don't know that I would take too much political advice from Joe Donnelly, who, in all due respect, really won an election in a perfect storm back in the day.
He didn't win that election so much as Richard Murdoch lost it.
Yeah, well, I mean, the fact
Yes.
that he was even running against Richard Murdoch was a miracle in itself, and then running against the guy who said God wants you to be raped is a pretty. So look, I got nothing against Joe Donnelly, good guy, very sincere, was a good senator, but taking political advice from him as to this is how you win in Indiana, not really. And I don't believe that we win by saying we're as Republican as the Republicans. I don't think that's ever been the case. We win by putting out our own vision and saying what we can do. And I certainly don't think that young Mr. Bayh can't do that. He has every opportunity to do that. And look, I'm going to support the candidate who's going to win. I'm going to support the candidate that the party selects. I'm not going to immediately discount anybody based on he can't help it who his father is. But he's put his hat in the ring and he's going to make his case, and I'll let him make his case if he's able to. But again, I'll just disagree with anybody who says being cautious and being being a Republican parrot is really what wins in Indiana. I think, as Leslie said, being sincere. Um, you can be more conservative on some issues. We've seen plenty of conservative Democrats in this state who were great legislators and great leaders, but at the end of the day, it has to be because this is what we believe in, and this is what our sincerity is. I don't think somebody in Scottsburg is probably going to run as a Democratic Socialist, right? But at the same time, I wouldn't say that somebody who is is a conservative Democrat is going to win in Bloomington. We have to have a message of progress, of honesty, of caring about people, and how we get there. There's a number of ways to get there, but I'm not going to reject anybody for being progressive ever, because I don't know. I would not say that is a disaster in Indiana. We've seen it win too many times.
Leslie, final word to you. What's your big takeaway for Hoosiers after Tuesday night?
Hoosiers, we can do this, and we are still fighting for you. We are going to continue to fight for you, and we're all in this together. And I would like to say, if you have any curiosity as to what kind of music somebody who has run for office and cares about politics makes, I have a Kickstarter right now. It's under my name, Leslie Nuss. You can go and check it out. I've talked about the video that I made with how you helped me make for Ticket to Mars, and yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm making music as another way to keep people engaged. And I've been asked to run for office for next year. I was kind of hoping to take off, supporting the blue wave that will come to Indiana.
Very good. What's that? You mentioned your music. What's the website so folks can find you? Where can the good people find Leslie Nuss online?
Well, they can find me on my website, which is leslienuss.com, and they can help fund my new project by going to kickstarter.com. And they can since I gave you a link, but they can search my name, Leslie Nuss, and they'll come up with my project. My new album's called Ride at Dawn, which is a song I wrote with a 17-year-old who is at the school that I do the music program with. And yeah, I've got some good, I think, inspirational songs on there to help people keep going. So thanks.
Well, thank you very much. Ross, how about you? Where can the good folks find you?
Barthdems.org. If you're in Columbus, see us. We got jobs for you.
Very good. All right. And the folks can find me online at whosleft.us. That is my handle on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads as well. On the others, it is at whosleft. Find me there, like, subscribe, do all the things, yada, yada. So until next time, I'm going to sign off on behalf of our panelists this week, Ross Thomas and Leslie.